Well, hey guys, it's Empyrean here from the internet, and I'm making a video that is a long time coming. I have been collecting things about this game, things about Path of Exile that I wish I knew earlier, or things that I wish most people knew, because it would make their gaming experience better. I don't know how to call this. You have read the title. I don't know what the title is yet. Tips and tricks, 39 things that I wish I knew about Path of Exile earlier. Some new player, some intermediate player tips. Anytime I mentioned pretty much any of these on stream, just as a throwaway comment, there was people in chat saying, oh my god, I've been playing for 5 leagues, I didn't know that. So I collected all of these, plus crowdsourced a few more, and written down them in a document. It's has some categories: UI stuff, vendor recipe, inventory management, game mechanics, gameplay, and trading / third-party stuff. So I'm gonna go through this list, and hopefully you learn something, or yeah, find something that's interesting. First of all, UI stuff. If you're a new player, you should take a look at your UI options and configure them. First, I'm gonna go DND. You can do /DND and not get any messages ever. You should go through these settings and set them up as you like. So first of all, you can show clock, so you can see your local time here. You can confine your mouse to window. There's a bunch of stuff that if you read, of course, it's self-explanatory. The most important stuff, I think, is in the gameplay section. Show life and mana levels, and show mini life bars on allies, enemies, and you. So that life bar on top of me is really nice to see, and the red bars on top of the mobs. Some people don't like that, some people like that. You can set this. There's also cursor settings. You can also buy cursor MTX, but these are free. You can set your cursor size large. It's maybe nice for YouTube videos. I'll just keep it in medium, I like that. These are how default sockets look, but there is colorblind options, and you can add small notches or large pattern. I really like the large pattern. I'm not colorblind, but I think it looks cool. So this is one of the things that I have set up. Next, number 2, attack without moving on abilities. This is a very important setting that you should have on some abilities. So if you don't have this on and you get your first movement ability, let's say Flame Dash at level 10, if you have this off, which is default, if you Flame Dash further than you could, then your character will walk to the range at which he can Flame Dash to your cursor. So if you have this off and you want to Flame Dash here, your character will walk. As long as they're in range to Flame Dash, they will Flame Dash. But you can turn this on, and your character will always Flame Dash. It won't Flame Dash exactly to your cursor, but it will Flame Dash as far as it can without walking. So this is a really important button for movement abilities especially. You can also set it up for like melee attacks. Number 3, the swirly button. There is a button in your party interface that looks like a little portal. We call this the swirly button because it looks like a swirly. Unfortunately, he just teleported to me, so I can't teleport to him. Thanks, Bazooka Tank. Very cool. I'm gonna teleport away from here. This button takes you to wherever that player is. If he's in a campaign zone leveling, he'll take you to that zone. If he's in a random town, he'll take you to that town. So before this button existed, people would usually right-click, visit hideout. But sometimes the player is not in his hideout. Sometimes he's in another hideout. Sometimes he's in a town. This button will always take you to where that player is, with some exceptions, such as Delve, Heist, like the Rogue Harbor, and of course you can't enter his map. Number 4, control clicking to reset zones. There are a lot of zones that are popular for farming when you're leveling. The big one would probably be Chamber of Innocence. There are a couple of zones where you reach it while leveling, and you kind of want to just farm the same zone because it's really good XP, or you want to catch up on XP, or want to get some drops before you move on with progressing. You can control left click a zone and make a new one. You can make as many as you want. You don't have to wait until the zone times out. Look, here's my previous zone. It'll time out in 8 minutes. Let's make a new one. The most important one is probably Blood Aqueducts. People just run this back and forth for humility cards at league start, for Tabula. But you can just go down, reset, Go again. You can do this not only at the waypoint, but also at the zone entrance. You can do it from here. Just make a new blood aqueduct straight from the town entrance. Number 5, search feature. There is a search feature in Path of Exile in your stash, in your passive tree, in your Atlas, and in your Atlas passive tree. Use this. Very useful. Let's say you want all the breach stuff. Just search for breach, zoom out. They're all blinking. Look, all the breach nodes are blinking. Awesome. Number 6, instantly allocating passive points using control. So you know how most people, when they start the game, they're like, all right, this is my next node. I'll click it and then I'll click apply. Next one, this one, click apply. You can just control click and immediately have them selected. And this is it. That's it. You can do this with Atlas passives and you can do this with the regular passives. Number 7, speaking of passives, /passives, there's a command. If you type it, it'll show you all of the passives that you've gathered throughout the campaign, and you can see if you missed an important story quest that gives you a passive point. If any of these say 0, that means you just missed the quest, and you can go back and grab it. /Atlas passives is another one, and this is for the Atlas passives, obviously. So if you haven't done the Feared or you haven't done the Elder Slayers, if you're like, okay, which one am I missing? You can type this command and see what you're missing. Number 8, stash tab affinities. This one is huge. So this is a free feature that GGG introduced. You don't have to have special tabs for this. It helps if you do, but there are stash tab affinities. Every tab that says affinity here, let's say you have like a regular tab. This is a regular tab. This is a free tab that comes with the game, and you can tick certain types of items, and if you control click items in your inventory that have affinities, they will fly into the appropriate tab. So for example, if you don't have a map tab yet, let's say you want your maps in this tab, you can right click it and set the map affinity to that tab. And even if you're looking at some other tab, if you control click your maps, they will go into the affinity tab, which is here. Number 9, control enter will open a chat message with the last person that messaged you. And control up and down arrows cycle through between your last whisper recipients. You can lock your portals so that others cannot enter them. If you click on this little arrow here and you click decorations, and then there is a button here called hideout options, you can make sure that your friends can enter your hideout, your guild members can enter your hideout, your party members can enter your hideout, and then there is a portal access. So if you're running some high juice map and you don't want any trader to enter and yoink a portal, you can disable their ability to enter your maps using this. This option is also available when you are in a party in the bottom here, but I'm not in a party, so you can't do that here. But if you're in a party, this drop-down box also appears here. Okay, and by the power of editing, I am back, guys, to the same video. A few days later, I realized that there's one more quick tip that I would like to share, and that is the /save_hideout command. If you do this, you can just save anyone's hideout. If you enter some cool hideout during your trade adventures, we'll do Flinker's cool hideout. Boom. Saved. Look. Now we have this hideout. Alright, moving on to the vendor recipe / inventory management part. Control-Shift-Click can buy full stacks of currencies from the vendor. So let's say you have a whole bunch of jeweler's orbs and you want to convert them into fusings. So what you did before probably is something like this. Control left click. That is really bad. You can just do Control Shift left click and just buy full stacks. Oh my god, the fingers, they're saved. Speaking of currency stacking, you can just hold a stack of currency, press shift, and then every left click will put a single currency onto the inventory. So this is useful when you're trading and you're like, all right, this guy is a 2C trade, this is a 3C trade. This is also really useful for fossil crafting. Let's say you just want to fill your inventory with fossils, you just shift left click, do it like this. I messed up, but you get the idea. Speaking of fossils, you know how you can fill up these resonators with fossils? Let's say you want to put in aberrant fossils. If you miss the socket, it will replace the resonator, which really sucks when you're just trying to fill them up. If you hold shift, you can't fuck it up. Even if you miss the socket, it's not gonna replace the fossil with the resonator on the mouse. So if you hold shift, you can fill it up and not worry about misclicking and replacing the thing. Next up, you can reset your bandit choice. Let's say you helped Alira, but for some reason you no longer need the res or the crit, so you just vendor 20 regret orbs with an onyx amulet, and you will get a Book of Reform. This will give you 2 passive points. Let's say you want to switch to Oak, then you just vendor the 20 regrets with an Ember amulet, and that is Oak's favor. Or Kratin for the Dex amulet, or Alira with Lapis amulet. Number 13, Lore Weave recipe and Grasping Mail recipes. So there is an item in the game called the Lore Weave. It's a very nice chest armor, and you obtain it by vendoring a full inventory of unique rings. They don't have to be identified, and they can even be corrupted. It still works. It's 60 unique rings. Then we should get a chest armor. You don't know how it rolls. It has a lot of roll ranges, but this on a league start is a pretty nice chest. It always comes 6-socketed, and it has max res. You can get from 76 to 78 max res with this. It also rolls all attributes, life, rarity, ES, crit, elemental damage, and flat fizz. So it has a bunch of decent stats for a lot of builds. The other one of these funky recipes is the Grasping Mail recipe. It's a full inventory of breach rings. Same concept, and you get a Grasping Mail. And this chest can roll 100% increased global defenses. So you can't alt spam it. So if you identify this and it doesn't roll increased global defenses, which this didn't, this is trash, basically. But if you roll the mod, it's like a multiple exalt sale. So it's worth looting your breach rings, either selling them in bulk or doing the gamble yourself. Number 14, staying with vendor recipes, the Divine Vessel recipe. Sometimes you just don't get a Divine Vessel and you need to do Pantheons. So you can just vendor 5 of any mana or life flask and a Divine Orb, and you get 5 Divine Vessels, and you can do your Pantheons. Very nice. Number 15. There is a Scarab recipe in the game. You can vendor 2 of the same Scarab with a Horizon Orb and get a different kind of Scarab of the same tier. Look, we just got a Breed Scarab. Next, the 3-to-1 oil recipe. This is pretty basic. Most people probably know this, but you can vendor, if you have a Blighted tab, you can do this in the tab. You can vendor up 3 of the same kind of oil to get 1 higher tier oil. Number 17, the 3-to-1 map recipe. Let's say you've been working on your Atlas and for some reason you have a bunch of T13 maps and you just want to not run those. Then you can vendor up 3 of the same kind of map to 1 map that is going to be 1 tier higher. Speaking of Atlas stuff, let's say you have fully favorited cemeteries. Let's say you want to do a full swap because you just watched your favorite YouTuber farm Crimson Temple for apothecary cards. This is what you had to do back in the day. Oh, that's Crimson Township. Where is it? It's down here. All right, here we got Crimson Temple. Oh my god, it's so far. But wait, They added a quality of life change. You can just copy the favorite from the one next to it or from up here. So if you want to change to Crimson Temple, you can just do this. Boom. You just 12 favorite Crimson Temple. GG. Next up, gem down leveling recipe. So let's say you just got a vitality, but you leveled it up too much and you can no longer use the vitality because it's too much mana. You can vendor it with a scouring orb and down level it by 1. You can keep doing it as much as you need. Now it's level 11. Now you can use it. Alternatively, you can vendor it with an Orb of Regret to completely reset it to level 1. At that point, of course, you could just buy a new one at level 1. But there are some gems in the game that you can't vendor. There's also some alternate quality gems. Maybe you want them at the lower level for some cast when damage taken setup or something. You can completely de-level it to 1 with an Orb of Regret. One last quick vendor recipe is the gem quality recipe. This is what is referred to as flipping gems in Path of Exile. If you're leveling gems and it's reached level 20, you can quality it up with 20 GCPs, but that's pretty expensive, especially early on in the league. So what most people do is just flip the gem, meaning vendor it with 1 GCP. That'll reset it to level 1, but it's going to give it 20 quality. And now you can level it up again, and it's going to be a 20/20 gem. All right, moving on to game mechanics. This is a very short section because I'm sure there's way better guides out there for this, but there is 2 things that I wrote down here. One of them is increased versus more damage. So if you're a new player, if you've been playing the game for a while, you probably already know this, but there is 2 types of like increased or more damage, and those are very different. So for example, the increased spell damage on this wand is additive with all other increased damages, and 20% more damage or 35% more damage on this gem is multiplicative, meaning if you have like 100% increased damage already and you get an item with another 10%, then your increased damage is just going to go up to 110% increased damage. But if you get another gem that has 40% more damage, that's a whole separate 1.4 multiplier to your damage. There is an exception to this wording with Bottled Faith for 10% increased damage taken. That increased damage taken is a more multiplier, even though it has the increased wording in it, because it's on enemies and they take increased damage, which is a separate more multiplier. This shares this multiplier with all other enemies take increased damage. There's not a lot of this in the game. I think Covered in Ash is one of them for Spire damage for, specifically. Shock, yeah, true. Another game mechanics thing is curse limit. Sometimes people just gem on a bunch of curses and they think that they work. The basic curse limit in this game is 1. You can only apply 1 curse to an enemy, and if you apply another one, the first will drop off. You can increase this limit by being an occultist, or by speccing this node, Whispers of Doom, or getting an amulet, corruption, +1 extra curse, or there's a bunch of unique items like Doedri's rings and other stuff that increase this number, but basically you can only apply 1 curse without increasing that curse limit. All right, moving on to the gameplay stuff. First one is like just very simple, but there is Orbs of Bindings in the game, which is nice for leveling. You can just instantly make a 4-link if you find one in like Act 3, Act 4. This is really cool. But these items just become alchemy orbs later, and people just don't use them, and they like stack up, and then they buy alchs and they forget that they have bindings. These orbs functionally work the same way as alchemy orbs. So if you want to roll your maps, you can just binding orb them, and it's the same as alch and go. It's just binding and go. The only exception to this is strong boxes. For some reason, you can't use these on strong boxes. Chiseling before alching, and qualitying before socketing and linking. This is important. Oh, I should probably chisel it up for quality. You're gonna use 20 chisels to do this. This is not good. Don't do this. If you chisel the map before you alch it, you only need to use 4 chisels. Boom, it's already 20. Now you can alch and go. Qualitying up an item increases the chance that it will 6-socket and 6-link. So if you're gonna use a lot of jewelers and fusings on an item, make sure you quality it up before. Armor scraps, blacksmith whetstones, get it to 20% quality, and then you can 6-link it easily. Just like this. Okay, I should probably cut this out. This is not really expected. Moving on. Horizon orbs are really good. They can help your early Atlas progression. Let's say you've already completed a bunch of maps and you don't have any maps anymore that you need for your Atlas. So Horizon orbs can change the map to another map. Let's say you've already done Maze. Oh, Underground River. Let's say you need that for the Atlas. Done. You just use one Horizon orb. What about Pit? You have a bunch of Pit maps, but you don't need that. Oh, another Underground River. Let's go again. Fall Pyramid. Okay, let's say you need that. These are really nice for early Atlas progression. Every tier of maps have a couple of base tier maps. You can only Horizon into this. This Atlas, this current Atlas, allows you to have every map on tier 16. That doesn't mean you can Horizon into every tier 16 map, but you can Horizon into every base tier map of that tier. So they usually release the tiers of maps at the patch notes at the start of the league, and you can refer to that always. They keep shuffling these around, so I'm not gonna say which are the base tiers because it's not gonna be relevant in 2 weeks. One more quick thing about Horizon orbs. You can Horizon Shaper Guardians into other Shaper Guardians. So let's say you only have Phoenix and Chimera, and you want all 4 Shaper Guardians. Then you can just make a Hydra and a Minotaur, and you're ready to go for a full Shaper. Very cool. Next up, you should be leveling gems in your offhand. So there's a secondary weapon set that you have, and if you put a bow here, or 2 weapons or anything, you can fill them up with gems that you need for your build or gems that you want to sell, and they will level even though they're not the active weapon set. So the most gems you can level is using a Maloney's mechanism, which early on is pretty expensive. I think it's like an X. But this way, this is the only unique quiver that has sockets. You can level 9 gems in your offhand. It's a good additional way of making some currency. There's an item in the game called the Sacred Blossom. It drops from a harvest boss from a T4 seed. I have never found this item. I've played this game for 12,000 hours at this point. I've never found this. But if you play Trade League, others will find it and you can buy it. You just pop it in your map device, open it, and it will spawn Oshabi. 100%. It's just a harvest with Oshabi in there. You walk up, you kill her, if you have a decent character, I guess. You can, of course, get a carry for it if your character's not strong enough to kill this. It has multiple phases, it teleports around, locks you down, stuff like that if you don't have a lot of damage. And doing this adds 5 extra slots to your Horticrafting station. So your Harvest station has 10 slots by default, but if you kill Oshabi in the Sacred Grove like this, you get 15 slots. Speaking of unlocking things, you can unlock an extra slot to your map device. Your map device comes with 4 slots, but if you put in a 4-way timeless encounter, which this is Legion content, if you collect 100 Karui splinters, Eternal splinters, Templar splinters, and Vaal splinters, they turn into these emblems, and if you put them in your 4-slot map device, open it, you start the encounter by running to the middle, it blows up, and as long as you kill 1 boss, you will unlock a 5th slot for your map device. And now you can juice your maps with 4 scarabs or fragments or whatever. Speaking of those juicing, you can actually put in a full stack, which is currently 10, of scarabs or fragments into the map device. You used to be only able to put in 1 at a time. But let's say you want to farm some Legion scarabs with some extra sacrifice fragments, then you can just put in 10, and then you have to keep putting in the map, of course, but you can just set up rotations of 10 at a time. Sacrifice fragments give you 5 quant into your maps, so if you're not juicing with scarabs, but you have a bunch of these fragments lying around, you can pop them in, it gives some extra quant. Next up, you can incubate on a trinket. So let's say for some reason you farmed a bunch of legions, or you farmed a bunch of simulacrums, and you want to get rid of those incubators. You can incubate on every item slot. You cannot incubate on weapon swap. You can level gems here, but you cannot incubate. If I put an incubator here and then I weapon swap, it's not going to get kills. But this trinket slot here will. This slot is unlocked by running a Grand Heist. This slot is unlocked by running a Smuggler's Den or Underbelly blueprints, Thieves, Trinket, or Currency. The first time you run one of these Grand Heists, in the end there will be a little box. You click it and this trinket slot will be activated. And from then on out, you can put in a trinket here and you can incubate on these. There is only one stat in these trinkets that work outside of heist, and it's the monsters have X% chance to duplicate dropped rogue markers. Every other stat that rolls on these trinkets is only heist specific and is not going to work in your maps, so farming this slot is not really important, but it does get you a little bit more rogue markers if it has that roll. Next one. Let's say you just finished lab to do your ascension. First of all, you should always click this altar. If you don't get your ascendancy. You have to click this altar to ascend. So that should be your first thing when you run into this room. Let's say you're enchanting some gloves. You're like, oh, trigger, word of light. That's perfect. That's exactly what I needed. Nice. I enchanted my gloves. Let's go. Go back to the campaign. Oh no, I just left my gloves in the lab. What am I gonna do? So you don't have to run another lab. What you're gonna do is go to your hideout and go to your crafting bench, and your gloves will be sitting right there. The lab enchant shares the spot with your crafting bench. What happens if you already have an item there? Then that item is gonna be there when you open the lab enchanting, and you have to take it out to enchant something. All right, let's say you're doing an expedition encounter or a logbook. Let's say you have placed these dynamites and you're going this way, and then you're like finishing your thing, and then you realize, oh no, there is some massive buff here that I want to get first. There is a button here which undoes the placement. That one has a hotkey, which default is Shift V. You can just spam that and go again, go fast. That hotkey is really useful. It has made my life a lot easier when I ran a lot of logbooks. Last section is gonna be the trading / third party stuff. I'm not gonna talk too much about trading, but there is one thing that made my life so much easier when searching for items, and it is the tilde sign. This squiggly line is the best thing about trading. Let's say you want a Watcher's Eye with all the discipline mods. If you just add the squiggly line, that means everything you type after just has to be part of the thing. So you don't have to type out like increased energy shield while affected by discipline. I could just do while disc and boom. These are all the discipline Watcher's Eye mods. Let's say I want a spell block with a precision while press. Oh, look, these are all the precision Watcher's Eye mods. Let's say you're looking for a jewel that has all sorts of crit multi. You can just do crit, molt, and boom. These are all the crit multi rolls in the game. Let's say you want crit multi with fire skills, crit multi with dual wielding, boom. There's an add-on to add the squiggly line automatically. It's called Path of Exile Trade Fuzzy Search. I have not used that, but this has just been recommended in chat. You can download that add-on and it'll just add this squiggly line every time, I guess. That's pretty cool. You should wait for Stash Tab sales. There is a Stash Tab sale every 3 weeks. There is a bunch of sales of all MTX rotating around, and Stash Tabs are included. There's usually a Stash Tab sale within the first week, or at most the first 2 weeks of any league. So if you want to buy a bunch of stash space, that's when you should do it. Next, the most popular trade scams. First of all, you should always double, triple, quadruple check everything you're buying, especially if it's a high value item. The most common things that people scam with is a high level Enlighten or Empower. There is some psychological warfare going on with this stuff. Let's say they're selling an Enlighten for 6.4x. Okay, and you put in the 6x and the 0.4, and let's say you put the 0.4 is 55 chaos. And then they are like, oh, you don't need 55. Let's just do 45 or 40 or 50. Basically, they make you take the chaos out, and have to put in another. So they cancel the trade so that you can do your chaos swap. And then in the next trade, they put in a level 1 Enlighten instead. And then they just yoinked 6x from you. So keep in mind, Enlightens and powers are very common scams. The next one is Doctor. When you're buying Doctor cards for a Headhunter, sometimes they put in the Metalsmith's Gift. It is very similar. Make sure you mouse over that card. Make sure it is actually a Doctor and not some card that kind of looks like a Doctor and isn't 6x. Okay? Watch out for this one. And the last one is fake 6 links. Let's say you want to buy a 6 link Carcass Jack, and then they put in this in the trade window. That looks like a 6 link, right? It's not a 6 link. It's 2 link on the top and 4 link on the bottom. That is not connected. Multiple exalts, scammed. Same thing with Chevs. Look at that. That's a 6 link Chevs, right? Nope, that's 4 link on the top, 2 link on the bottom. That is not connected. Watch out for this one. Last one, Queen of the Forest. That's the easiest one to spot, I guess. This one isn't connected. 2 link on the top, 4 link on the bottom. But if you're tired, you've been playing for 4 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours because it's league start, you just took some days off, you're blasting, you're tired. All right, finally got enough currency to buy a 6 link. Let's just go get this over with. Trade, boom, boom, and then you lose all your X. So, you know, double, triple check your trades. Don't get scammed. Good luck. Finally, some third-party recommendations. This game is not very casual friendly. First of all, the stuff that I can recommend is Awakened PoE trade, very easy price check tool. Let's see how much is this Chevs. I can just control D, boom. It's a 6-socket Chevs, it's 15C, 20C, 25C. Very cool. If you control Shift D, you can, let's say I want a max res one. Then you just drag the slider up here or type the number, and then these are all 40 res Chevs. There is a whole video that could be made about Awakened PoE trade. Basically, it's just nice, control D, price check everything instantly type of thing. Heavily recommended. Next one, POB, Path of Building. I hate using Path of Building, but it's an incredibly useful tool for planning your builds, checking how much damage you have exactly, messing around with gems, seeing what you could do. There is items here, scales, tree, and then all the calculations that tell you what exact stats you have, and if you put in another item, how things would change. You should get the community fork. If you search for Path of Building, you should search for Path of Building Community. That's the fork version. That is always one step ahead of wherever the main Path of Building is. This is the most insane and in-depth like third-party program for Path of Exile. Heavily recommended if you're into planning and number crunching and all that stuff. Next one, craftofexile.com. Really good website for crafting. I cannot use this website well, but if you learn how to use it well, you can learn a lot about crafting. You can search for all sorts of data in here. Let's say you want a Dex helmet. This will tell you every roll that can go on that Dex helmet. If it has Shaper influence, if it has Elder influence, if it has Hunter influence, prefixes left side, suffixes right side, crafted stuff, essence stuff, sentinel mods, corrupted implicits, insane amount of data. It has a crafting simulator. This is very try-hard stuff. Next up, Excellence Next. This is a currency per hour or value in your tabs tracker. Really nice tool. I use it to value the projects that I farm whenever I do like, okay, let's do 50 maps of Legion farming, and then I put everything in a quad tab, and then I just value stuff with Excellence Next. Pulls data from PoE Ninja, which is a very good website. You can just like select tabs that you want to track. You can add minimum value if you don't want to track garbage, and then save profile, take snapshot, and it'll just fetch your tabs using the API. Last but not least, the TFT Discord. This Discord has, at the moment of this recording, 314,000 members. You can hear horror stories about it on Reddit, how people get scammed, but people get scammed without TFT, probably 100 times more than on TFT. This Discord has channels for everything in Trade League. So if you want boss carry service, harvest crafting service, 5-way hosting, other rotations, card gambles, challenges, mirror services, Legion jewel selling, full gear set selling, build advice, bulk trading for everything, bases, beasts, deli orbs, essences, expedition, the list goes on. There is a lot of good stuff that you can do on this Discord. It has an honor system or a vouch system. If you craft for other people and you complete their craft and you don't scam them, then they will vouch you, and the more vouches you have, the more trust you build up on the server. And then if you want to do some expensive crafting on like a 50x item and you don't want to give it to some random person, you can check if that player is like trusted on the server. If he has been vouched by 150 people, then he's probably not going to take your 50x item. It works, it is enforced, so if people scam, they get banned, like permabanned from the Discord, and of course they can make a new account and start over, but they have to build up reputation for that. So yeah, really good, useful Discord. One more third-party program. This is probably the best one for your wrist. This one is called X mouse button control. Some of your mice will have something like this built in, but if you don't, you should get this program. With this program, you can rebind your up and down scroll wheel to left click. So if you ever seen a streamer grab chaos really, really fast, it's not because they are clicking extremely fast, it's because they're scrolling their mice and they have the wheel up and wheel down rebound to left click. As long as this is not automated, this is within terms of service and you are allowed to do this. If you've seen a trader put 600 chaos into their inventory really fast, this is how they do it. And this is just me scrolling the mouse and moving it like left, right. You can set it up so that it only does this in Path of Exile. So you can still tab out and use your scroll wheel and it's not going to be left click. But when you tab back into PoE, you can scroll wheel and it's going to be left click. Turn it on and off. Very simple, very useful. The final tip that I'm going to give you. If you're playing softcore trade, you should have a very specific tooling. No matter what character you play, you should have a cast on death portal. Okay? Doesn't matter how tanky your build is. Doesn't matter. Sometimes you will die. Maybe outside of your control. Maybe within your control. Maybe your cat stepped on your keyboard. Doesn't matter. Sometimes you will die. And sometimes it is frustrating to die. And sometimes you just don't have a portal down. Because why would you in a random all-can-go map? Oh no, I'm gonna die. Oh, I have to do something. Something happened. I'm dead. Thankfully, there is a portal waiting for me. It's called the checkpoint setup. You can just go back. Portal's right there, where you left off. And you can continue your mapping adventures. So, yeah. Cast on that portal. Use it. It's very nice. Most builds can fit an extra 2 sockets. No more walks of shame. Okay? And that was the last tip. Hopefully that was helpful or informative. Thank you for watching. Quick shout out to the sponsor of this video. You guys. Pretty much 99% of my content is still sponsored by you, the viewer. If you're supporting me through Twitch, watching ads on YouTube, on Twitch, subbing, donating, all that stuff goes a long way. It lets me continue creating content like this. So I appreciate you if you do that. And that's all I got. Hopefully you learned something today that you didn't know before. And see you in the next video or on Twitch. Bye.